Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, the podcast where we explore the origins and development of the DC multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters throughout the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And this week we are back with the Superman and Batman family. We are reading World's Finest issue 148, which was published on the 28th of January 1965, which was the same day that Showcase 55, which we did in our last episode, was published. And with a cover date of March 1965. Gorgeous cover by Kurt Swan.
Yes.
A lot going on. What's happening on the cover then, Pete?
We have Batman with a massive holdall with jewels coming out of it.
So many jewels.
It looks like all the stuff that fell off his mother's neck.
That's a bit dark, isn't it, listeners? Good grief. I think Peter's been looking at the behind-the-scenes photographs from that new movie they're making, and they've obviously influenced him.
And Superman is in front of him, and Superman's shielding Batman from gunfire. But they're not from robbers, they're from the cops.
Yep, there's three policemen in the cover, and they look like the members of the O'Dare family.
They do.
Isn't that weird?
Yes.
Let's pretend the one in the middle is Barry, and Barry's saying,
"Great Scott, our entire police force won't be able to catch those two super criminals."
"Gosh."
And Superman's saying,
"Your bullets can't harm Batman while I'm around. I'll let you off easy this time. But if you attack my partner again, I'll really take care of you." And Batman, who looks as though he's about to swing off on a rope, says,
"Thanks for the protection, Superman. Meet me at the Batcave later and we'll split the loot."
Gee whiz.
Yes.
And we should mention the cover caption, which says,
"Featuring Superman and Batman
Outlaws." Fantastic.
Nice clean cover with a good yellow background. I like that a lot.
It's nice. Listeners, you can probably anticipate what might be going on here. So, onto the splash page.
Have you ever thought what might happen if Superman and Batman use their powers and abilities for evil purposes instead of good? Imagine the world's greatest heroes transformed into the world's most infamous villains and using their secret identities to hide from the law. This is only one of the amazing twists in the incredible story of Superman and Batman Outlaws.
So the opening splash page, it shows Superman with his hands up, it shows Batman looking mildly concerned, and a couple of policemen, again, they might be the O'Dares, they might not be, and Lex Luthor and Clayface approaching Batman and Superman. And Lex Luthor is saying,
"Stay back, Captain. Clayface and I will handle these criminals. I'll shackle Superman with my kryptonite manacles."
And Batman says,
"The police helping Luthor and Clayface against us. This is a nightmare." And Superman saying,
"But it's true, Batman. I can feel the rays from that kryptonite weakening me."
"Gosh."
So we haven't seen Clayface before. We've had Luthor a few times.
Yeah, a wee bit of history in Clayface.
Yes, please do.
This is actually the second Clayface.
Ooh.
Matthew Hagen is his name.
Right.
First appeared in Detective Comics issue 298. He was a treasure hunter. He was looking for sunken treasure and he discovered an underground grotto that had this rainbow pool that was filled with a strange protoplasm. And as you do, he entered the pool,
Yeah.
silly man, and discovered that his skin had changed to a clay-like constituency. So with effort, he could change his appearance.
Wowza.
So he fought Batman quite a few times. Eventually, spoiler, he was killed. But there's actually quite a legacy itself to the Clayface name. There was originally a Golden Age Clayface who was a movie star called Basil Carlo. I wonder where they got that name from.
That's very like Peter Vincent in the original Fright Night movie, obviously based on Vincent Price and Peter Cushing. A detail that was lost in the David Tennant remake from a few years ago. But anyway, no, the Clayface is clearly obviously then a Golden Age DC legacy character.
Yes, and the legacy continues because there's a third Clayface who had slightly different powers. Instead of being able to change his appearance, his clay touch basically dissolves people into clay, which is horrible. And then there's a fourth Clayface. She appeared in Batman and the Outsiders, and I think there's been subsequent Clayfaces since, but they're your main Clayfaces. But right now, it's Clayface 2.
Have all the Clayfaces ever teamed up?
There was a really good story called The Mud Pack.
Right.
It ran in Detective Comics. Alan Grant wrote it, and Norm Brayfogle did the art. It was only 4 issues. Basil Carlo had united the Clayfaces, including the remains of Clayface 2, and basically took blood samples from each of them so that he could gain their powers. Because he was originally a non-powered serial killer.
Right.
And it's a great story. I think it's been reprinted. It might be in one of the recent collections that's reprinting the late 80s stuff, but yeah, it's incredibly good.
There was an issue of Secret Origins that tied in. I can't remember if it was an issue of the regular comic or one of the annuals, but I do remember seeing the Mud Pack on the cover of an issue of Secret Origins at one point.
Yes, there's that as well. So yes, the Mud Pack.
Moving into the story then, we open on page 2 with a caption saying,
An urgent news bulletin reaches wealthy Bruce Wayne, who is secretly Batman, and his ward Dick Grayson. That's weirdly phrased.
It is, isn't it?
He's not secretly Batman and Dick Grayson. Never mind.
So obviously at Wayne Manor, or one of Bruce's fancy penthouse apartments, and Dick Grayson is sat with the radio on. Bruce is unbuttoning his shirt to get ready, obviously, to become Batman.
And the voice from the radio says,
Calling Batman and Superman, the Gotham Science Foundation wants you on an important matter. And Bruce Wayne says,
I wonder what's up. I'll switch identities fast and find out. I won't need you as Robin this time, Dick.
We then cut to Metropolis in a caption which says,
And in Metropolis, reporter Clark Kent gets the same message.
And we see Jimmy Olsen tearing a message off the wire, and he says,
Hey Clark, they want Superman and Batman down at the Gotham Science Foundation. Sounds like a story. And Superman's thinking,
in classic bicycle repairman style, that's a story I'll cover in my other identity of Superman.
Soon in a guarded laboratory of the Foundation.
And we see Batman and Superman suited and booted, and they're with a scientist professor type guy who's pointing at a nice, very familiar looking piece of machinery. I'm sure I've seen something very like it on the cover of JLA with
It looks very much like Dr. Light's device, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? That is interesting. So, scientist professor guy says, This apparatus was the last work of our great physicist Dr. Norbert, who died recently. None of us knows the nature of this invention, but on his deathbed he dictated a note about it. His last words were, The machine in my laboratory is my greatest invention. Haven't had time to test it, but its mighty power must not be misused. Give it to Superman and Batman for safekeeping.
And Superman says,
We'll try to find out its purpose, but in some secluded place.
Later, in an uninhabited region near Gotham City, the mighty team turns on the apparatus.
And we see Batman and Superman standing. There's a tree in the background. They're probably in a park or an empty vacant lot or something. And they have activated the apparatus. We need a name for it. We can't keep calling it. We're just going to call it the apparatus. They've activated the apparatus, yes, as the caption says. And rather like the Dr. Light device, there are beams of energy flashing out for it. For Superman says, It projects some terrific force. Keep behind me, Batman. Batman says,
Too late. Everything's going round.
The caption for the next panel says,
For a moment, the two lawmen are caught in an unreal blur.
And we see Batman with his hands up.
It's an amazing panel.
It's very funny. It's an excellent little Kurt Swan panel, for he's the artist for this issue. Superman looks like he's been goosed. Frankly, Batman looks like he can't deal. He's got his hands up to his head and the rays are flashing over them. So we move on to the top of page 3. The caption says,
And then their vision clears.
And we see them standing amongst some trees. And Superman says, That was a terrific force that hit us, but it had no effect of any kind. And Batman says,
It should have affected something, yet everything's just the same as before. But are things the same? As they stand puzzled, a small plane chances to pass overhead.
And we see a little red aeroplane flying above the trees where Batman and Superman and the apparatus are on the ground. And a voice from the aeroplane says,
Gotham Airport, call the police. I've spotted Batman and Superman out here near Midvale Crossing. And the voice over the radio responds,
Batman and Superman? I'll have the police there in minutes. And sure enough.
And as police cars roar swiftly to the scene.
And we see a few police cars rolling up and the officers got out their brandishing guns, and one of the policemen says,
Don't let them get away, men. Luthor and Clayface have been alerted and will be here to help us capture them. And Superman says,
Luthor, Clayface, two of the worst criminals in the world. What kind of a joke is this, Captain?
But as Superman starts forward, he finds it is no joke.
Yeah, because indeed the policemen have opened fire, and one of them says,
Look out, men. They say bullets can't stop Superman. We'll find out if that's true. Fire! Superman says,
They're shooting real bullets. This doesn't make sense.
It becomes even more incredible to the mighty duo a moment later.
A small red aeroplane has landed, and it was bearing Clayface and Lex Luthor. One of the policemen says,
Here they are, the greatest lawmen of all. Luthor and Clayface.
And Lex Luthor says,
Keep back, Captain. We'll handle these two supercriminals. My green kryptonite manacles are the only things that can hold Superman.
Lex is brandishing the same manacles. It must be the same ones he had in the splash page, I think. The next caption for the bottom panel says,
And Clayface uses his unique power of changing his form.
This is fantastic. I mean, I'm showing my ignorance of Clayface here. I didn't realise his powers were such a complete ability of metamorphosis, as it were. We see him turning into a cheetah. It's like a really high-speed version of Manimal.
Yes.
And as he changes, he thinks, I'll become a cheetah. Swiftest of hunting beasts. If Batman tries to flee, he won't be able to escape me. Moving on to page 4, and the policeman and the cheetah version of Clayface and Lex with his kryptonite manacles are all running towards Batman and Superman. And Batman exclaims,
"The police are helping Luthor and Clayface against us. This is a nightmare." And Superman says,
"But I can feel the rays of that green kryptonite, the only substance that can harm me, and it's real."
Swiftly, the Man of Steel snatches up his partner and...
"We're getting out of here at super speed," and Superman and Batman fly off to land in the next panel, and a caption says,
Moments later, many miles away, and Superman says,
"We escaped them, but I still can't believe all this. Do you suppose those police were really crooks in disguise?" Batman says,
"I've got a terrible suspicion. Superman, use your telescopic vision to look into Gotham City and Metropolis and see if anything is different." When he does so, the Man of Steel sees an incredible thing.
and we see Superman using his telescopic vision, and he's beholding a sign, obviously some distance away, that's illustration of himself and Batman. And the sign says, "Wanted, Batman and Superman, $1 million reward for capture of these criminals." And Superman says, "It's impossible, but we're wanted criminals now. Billboards advertise a huge reward for our capture." And in the next panel, he's obviously looking slightly elsewhere because we now see statues of Lex Luthor and Clayface. We should point out that Lex is wearing his grey sort of prison fatigues,
Yes.
which he wore in that Lois Lane story we did a while ago.
Which is interesting as he's a hero in this world.
This could almost have been a time to maybe expect him in his green and purple suit they had from the 70s.
Yeah.
Superman can see a statue of Lex and Clayface which bears the legend, "In honour of Luthor and Clayface, our great champions of the law." And Superman is saying, "And Luthor and Clayface are honoured as lawmen. I'm dreaming." And Batman says,
It's no dream. What I suspected is true. We're not on our own Earth at all.
and there's the rub, listeners. As we move on to page 5, Batman continues.
That machine's force must have hurled us into a parallel world. A world that's almost like Earth in every way, but in which history has a different course than on Earth. Scientists have often theorized that many similar worlds exist, separated from each other by dimensional barriers.
And this panel has the now traditional graphic of one Earth being slightly overlapped by another Earth. And it's interesting here that Batman is saying scientists have often theorised that many similar worlds exist separate, because both guys have already had
Several adventures.
Several adventures. So as we move on to panel 3, Batman is still speaking and he says,
I was hurled into such a world once before, by a freak accident. In that parallel Earth, the same people had different lives, different characters.
and there's a little footnote which says, "See the Batman nobody remembered in World's Finest number 136, or indeed our earlier episode.
Then Superman responds,
The Batman and Superman of this parallel world must be criminals. But how could that have happened?" Now let's pause here. It's interesting that Batman is making a continuity reference
yes.
to that previous World's Finest story, which we did a few weeks ago now, which we both enjoyed. Is this the first time that Batman has told this story, or made any mention of it?
It may be, or he might just not think that Superman remembered.
Yeah, or he could. Yeah, I think you're being too generous to Batman here. It's interesting that he might have said, "Do you remember when I told you?" But it's also, there's not a single reference to Earth 1 or Earth 2
Yeah.
or Earth 3, which again, this I suppose highlights the lack of editorial cross communication and pollination, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, what's weird is the entire creative team for this issue is completely different from the entire creative team of that World's Finest issue that they reference. Because World's Finest 136, The Batman Nobody Remembered, was written by Bill Finger, drawn by Jim Mooney, and the editor was Jack Schiff. Whereas this one is written by Edmund Hamilton, Kurt Swan is the artist, and Mort Weisinger's the editor. So it's interesting that they reference that, because Mort Weisinger has edited previous parallel Earth stories as well, but they choose to use The Batman Nobody Remembered as a reference.
So it's interesting that they're maintaining and referencing the continuity within the actual comic.
Yes.
I think previously we had one of the Superboy stories made reference to an issue of Action Comics, and then indeed there was another Superman story that referenced one of the Superboy stories. I suppose it's the consistency is the inconsistency. Because there was that nice moment that thrilled us both in the Green Lantern story we did a few weeks ago when Hal Jordan made mention of Earth 1 and Earth 2 and Earth 3.
But that was all edited by Julie Schwartz. It might be the case in this instance that they thought people that bought World's Finest and read World's Finest maybe only bought and read World's Finest.
Aye.
So that could be why they're referencing that issue, as opposed to all the Justice League, Justice Society, or the Flash adventures, or their previous parallel adventures, you know.
It definitely, I think, suggests that there has not been a big roundtable meeting where all the different editors have agreed, this is how we're going to do parallel worlds, this is how we're going to talk about it. You know, there's obviously no real continuity as we've come to know it in the modern sense at this point still.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote one of the script editors of Doctor Who, a guy called Terence Dix, who worked on it in the 1970s, who sort of said continuity was basically what you could remember.
Yeah, true.
You know, there's no attempt here to build a coherent multiverse. There's still the idea that the parallel world, at least maybe in the Superman family stories, is just a gimmick in a similar way to the imaginary story, or it's all a dream, or a machine projection stuff. It's nice to actually see the little footnote.
Yeah.
I do like that. So anyway, we move on, and the panel 4 of page 5 has a caption which answers Superman's question about what could have happened, and the caption says,
How? Here is the different history of Superman, which began on a parallel planet of Krypton.
And we see Krypton exploding as Superman's rocket, little baby Superman inside, his rocket's flying away, and a voice from Krypton says,
Our world, Krypton, is exploding, but our baby Kal-El, whom we fired away in that missile, will reach Earth and live. He'll have superpowers there.
And the caption for the next panel says,
On the parallel Earth, Jonathan and Martha Kent were not the kindly people we know, but thieves.
Oh, goodness me. So, evil parallel Earth version of Martha Kent says,
This hick disguise of ours made the robbery easy. Nobody suspected any danger from us. Our Smallville hideout has worked like a charm.
Yeah, we should say at this point they're driving along in a little car and she's getting a suitcase full of money. That's fantastic. I love it. And Pa Kent is saying, It sure has, but say, something fell out of the sky over there. Let's see what it is. And in the next panel, we see that Super Baby, I suppose, his rocket has crashed and little baby Kal is crawling around on the ground. And Pa Kent says, A baby? He must have accidentally shot out of that rocket that landed over there. Come on, we'll let him take care of himself. Good grief, that's dark. Oh my God, I'm just going to abandon the child. Right, so Martha Kent says,
Wait, there might be a big reward offered for this kid. If we take him home, we can collect it.
Oh my goodness. We move to the top of page 6 and the caption says,
But as time passed...
And Martha and Jonathan are sat on chairs out on the porch of their house, watching little Super Baby Clark playing, and Martha says,
No rewards even been offered. We'd better take this brat to the orphanage.
And Pa Kent responds,
You're right. He's just a nuisance. What's he doing now? And we see that little baby Clark's ball has bounced under the house. And he says, Ball bounce away. Me get it. And in the next panel, he's lifted the house clear up off its foundations. And he's saying, Me get ball now.
and Pa Kent exclaims,
The brat's lifting the whole house. He must have super strength. And the next caption says,
After studying Super Baby's powers...
And there's a nice close-up of shady Jonathan and shady Martha. And Jonathan's saying, He has all kinds of superpowers. With him to help us, we could pull really big-time robberies. And Martha says,
But we must keep his power secret so the police don't catch on.
and then the next panel is fantastic. It's basically, he looks like Superboy at this point, and he's bursting through the wall of a bank, carrying off the vault. The caption says,
So the baby from Krypton grew up into Superboy, a young super robber.
and a random passerby in the street says,
Look, that young super thief is taking the whole vault out of the bank.
and Jonathan and Martha are proudly looking on, and Pa Kent says, Ha! And nobody dreams he's our son Clark Kent. What a crime career he has ahead of him. We move on to panel 5 of page 6, and the caption says,
But what of this parallel world's Bruce Wayne? In this world, his father was not Dr. Thomas Wayne, but cat burglar Tom Wayne.
And it's a rooftop scene, it's at night, and we see Tom Wayne attempting to escape after no doubt committing some dastardly deed, and there are a few policemen running towards him across the roof, and one of them says,
He wouldn't stop when ordered and a bullet hit his leg.
And the second policeman says,
He won't escape this time. The cat burglar is going to prison for sure. Slow dissolve to panel 6, and the caption says,
When Wayne came out of prison, he was an embittered, determined man.
and we see the young Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne presumably must be standing outside the equivalent of Wayne Manor on this parallel world, and young Bruce is saying,
Is this where we're going to live now, Dad?
and his evil, rotten, parallel Earth version of his dad says,
Yes, Bruce, and this is where I'll educate you in acrobatic skills. My career ended when my leg was injured, but you'll be the greatest burglar of all time.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan obviously would play this guy in the movie. So we move on to page 7. We see Batman swinging around the Batcave, and the caption says,
And as the years passed,
and young Batman is saying,
I perfected my swing, Dad. It'll help me get into high buildings I want to loot.
and old man Wayne says,
Good, but keep practicing.
I bought the house because of this hidden cave under it. When you're a full-fledged burglar, it'll be your Batcave hideout.
I wonder what inspired the Waynes of this parallel world to adopt the bat motif.
Maybe it would strike fear into the police.
Yeah, interesting.
Creature of the night,
Yeah.
cat burglar, bat burglar. Could be.
Possibly. So we move on to the caption for the next panel, which says,
A few years later, in Metropolis, the Kents gloated over the crime exploits of their son.
and Ma and Pa are looking at a newspaper which has the headline, Supercriminal Strikes Again, Steals Liner with Gold Shipment. And the newspaper has a large photograph on the cover, which is obviously Superman flying a ship, which was obviously the one bearing the shipment. And Ma Kent says,
I knew he'd make the greatest robber of all time. I'm so proud of him.
That's our boy, and nobody dreams he's reporter Clark Kent. He's fooled the whole world. And a similar scene is taking place elsewhere.
And in Gotham City, ex-burglar Wayne also felt pride.
And we see Thomas Wayne watching television, and the television image is a silhouette of Batman swinging off his rope off the edge of a building, and the voice from television says, This is your mobile newsman, and we're showing you that amazing burglar Batman. He's getting away again. And Thomas Wayne thinks to himself,
They'll never catch him. It does my heart good to see this.
And then the caption for the next panel says,
And so, on this parallel Earth, Superman and Batman are now the greatest criminals of their world.
And it looks like they're in some sort of cave-like hideout. It might be the Batcave. Superman is bouncing in, and Batman says,
My stolen riches pile higher, but still, I haven't enough. Who's that? Oh, Superman.
Batman, there's something mysterious going on. Turn on the news. And indeed, they switch on the radio in the next panel, and the little voice coming out the radio says,
And when the infamous criminals, Superman and Batman, were spotted near Midvale Crossing, they were almost captured, but escaped. And Superman says,
We weren't there, so somebody must be impersonating us. We'd better find out who's doing it and why. It must be said that this Superman, there are a few more lines on his forehead, a few more lines in his face. He doesn't look quite as heroic as our own. So next panel.
Meanwhile, the Batman and Superman from our Earth are badly upset.
Superman and Batman flying along together, and Batman says,
It seems certain that Batman and Superman of this parallel world are evil lawbreakers. And Superman says,
Let's get back fast to our own Earth. The machine that brought us here should be able to take us there. We'll return to it.
But when they return to the site,
And as they land, no sign of the apparatus, and Batman says,
the parallel world machine is gone. Luthor and Clayface must have taken it to the city. How can we get back to our own Earth now?
We must get back. We're lawmen and heroes on our own world. But here, we'll be mistaken for the criminals our counterparts of this world are.
Suddenly,
And the next panel shows the evil Superman and Batman landing. For evil Superman says, I heard them with my super hearing as we approached. There are doubles, but they're lawmen on their own Earth, Batman. And evil Batman says,
that gives me an idea.
and then our Batman says,
Superman, if we arrest this evil team, we'll prove we're not criminals and we can get our machine back.
Then the evil Batman says,
If we got their machine and went into their Earth, we could pose as lawmen and loot that world.
which prompts our Batman to say,
You heard that, Superman? We must overcome these villains, or our Earth will be threatened. But when Batman and Superman join battle with their evil doubles,
and look at it closely, I think it's the good Superman here. Good Superman has picked up a tree and he's tried to break it over the other Superman, but obviously he's raised his hand and it's shattered. And evil Superman says, I have every superpower you have, including invulnerability. Then the caption for the next panel says,
and as the duel of doubles rages, Batman too finds his match.
and the two Batmen are swinging about on their ropes between a couple of trees, having a great time. And one of the Batmen says,
No, you don't. I know that trick of knocking out an enemy with your feet as well as you do.
and the final panel for this page has a caption that says,
And a shattering realization comes to the two great lawmen.
and we see Superman and Batman regarding Superman and Batman, and Superman says, they are our exact doubles, our match in every way. How can we ever stop them? And a tiny footnote says, end of part 1. What do you think of it so far?
Yeah, it's good.
I'm enjoying it. It's fair rattling along.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that we have very clearly defined versions of Superman and Batman being Bruce Wayne and adopted by the Kents. as being evil versions. It's a step further from, I suppose, the Earth 3 versions of Ultraman and Owlman, who weren't really defined as being Kal-El and Bruce Wayne. And of course, as we said at the time, Owlman didn't really look anything like Bruce Wayne, and Ultraman looked quite different. He certainly sounded very different to Superman.
Yes.
It's interesting we've got that, but as Pete was saying when we were doing a preparation, there's already been a slight precedent for evil versions of characters that we know.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the Superboy story with the parallel universe
Yeah.
Superboy who was turned evil temporarily through Red Kryptonite. We've had the 5 Legion traitors, the evil Goliath, Hercules, and Samson as
Of course.
well.
How could I have forgotten the evil Atlas and Hercules?
I know.
I know. And Samson.
And Samson.
Gee whiz.
So yeah, we have had a few. It is something I like to play around with. It is quite a good story trope.
I mean, it's an absolute classic of the genre, isn't it?
Yeah.
Evil Double.
Yeah.
And I suppose the parallel Earth is a great way to use it. I mean, do you think this is maybe the closest we've had to that Star Trek Mirror idea?
Actually, yeah, I have. As you said, they're not Ultraman and Owlman. They are the same character. So yeah, this is really good. Yeah.
Reading this now, I kind of want a storyline where the Superman and Batman of this parallel Earth have to fight Owlman and Ultraman.
Or team up.
That would be tremendous. So when DC Comics let Peter and I write a DC comic together, that's one of the things that we'll do. So anyway, back to the plot, on to part 2. There's a nice big 2/3 of the page splash panel, which we won't go into any detail on because it kind of spoils what happens next in the story, to be honest. But there is a caption, helpfully, which says, Part 2.
In a supreme crisis on the parallel Earth,
Oh, yes.
Superman and Batman acquire allies, but allies who are their deadliest enemies on this world. Here is the story of a struggle that rocks 2 worlds fought by the incredible new super team.
Back into the story, 2 Supermen and 2 Batmen are still fighting away as they were at the end of part 1, and the caption says,
The nightmare battle between Superman and Batman and their evil doubles rages on.
and one Batman says,
If I could get a rope around him by hurling this batarang, I can overpower him.
and the other Batman says,
Not clever enough, my bat knife easily cuts your rope. Try again.
when we see that right enough, we see the line being cut as the other Batman throws his Batarang. And then the next panel has the 2 Supermen, one of them flying towards the other one, who steps back and says, Trying to knock me down with a super swift charge, eh? You forget, I'm as fast as you and can easily dodge you. We move on to page 2 of chapter 2. And again, the dialogue, or the thought bubbles in this case, pretty much covers what's going as well. We see one of the Supermen hurling a big rock, and one of the Supermen is thinking, since he's a lawman, this should divert his attention from us. So he's obviously the baddie. He's flinging the rock. Good Superman is kneeling on the ground and thinks, he's hurling that boulder at innocent people's homes. I must stop it. Caption for the next panel says,
The Man of Steel zooms after the flying mass of stone, and
we see Superman catching it successfully, preventing any damage to property or loss of life. And he thinks, got it. But I left Batman with 2-to-1 odds against him back there.
And when Superman flashes back to the scene of the struggle,
And we see Batman sat on the ground looking a bit dejected as Superman lands, and Batman says,
the evil Superman and Batman were too much for me. They knocked me senseless and left, and they're after the machine that will take them into our world. And Superman says,
we have to prevent that by getting back our machine before they grab it.
but if we go into Gotham City, after it, we'll be taken for the evil supercriminals, and Luthor and Clayface will attack us again.
And Superman, now spinning around, tunneling down into the ground, he must be using his super ventriloquism so Batman can hear him. And Superman is saying, we'll travel underground. Follow me as I tunnel toward the city.
But the evil Superman has been watching with his supervision.
And we see lined-faced evil Superman using his vision, and he can see Superman and Batman tunneling along underground. And evil Superman says, just as I expected, our doubles are tunneling into Gotham City to get at that parallel world machine. If Luthor and Clayface were notified that we're tunneling into the city, they'd capture our doubles, giving us a clear field. And Batman says,
It's an inspiration. Robin has been in Gotham City, casing the scene of my next burglary. I'll call him by belt radio.
wow, so the Dick Grayson of this parallel world is a baddie as well.
Which makes you wonder what his origin is, because we don't have that.
Yeah, presumably things must have panned out the same at the circus. There was the accident, and then Bruce went, come with me and we can steal things.
He probably thought, he's got acrobat skills.
I'm going to dress you up in a costume and make you steal things. Dodgy.
I need someone to look distracting who the police can shoot at while
Yeah.
I commit robberies. That's probably what
Definitely.
happens.
Oh god, that's awful.
Uh-huh.
We're now on page 3 of chapter 2, and the first panel has Robin in costume, standing on top of a building, talking on his radio, and the caption says,
On this parallel Earth, Robin the Boy Wonder is the evil Batman's youthful accomplice in crime.
so Batman's voice is coming over the radio.
So we want you to tip off Luthor and Clayface that we're approaching Gotham City, but be clever about it. Luthor's sharp. And Robin's response:
"Don't worry, Batman, I can handle it."
Donning street clothes, Robin becomes the Dick Grayson of this other Earth.
And we see Dick on top of a building, looking down, and he thinks to himself, "Luthor might suspect a trick if I warned him directly. I'll work through Jimmy Olsen, his pal." Interesting. Caption for the next panel.
This Jimmy Olsen is the same hero worshipper as his double on our Earth, but he has a different title here.
And we see Jimmy Olsen addressing the members of the Gotham City branch of this Earth's version of his fan club. We've had Jimmy's fan club before, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. That's with Lois's kite flying exploits. She was filling in for Jimmy
Of
there when
course.
she gets zapped to a parallel
That's right.
dimension.
So Jimmy is addressing his fan club, and he's saying,
I've told you members of my fan club here in Gotham City about the great exploits I've shared with Luthor. Now, I have to return to Metropolis, but remember, Luthor's the greatest.
and the lurking Dick Grayson thinks to himself, "I'll catch Olsen as he leaves the clubhouse."
Soon, outside.
And Dick is speaking to Jimmy, and Dick says, "Mr. Olsen, I'm worried. I felt vibrations in the ground as though someone's tunneling toward Luthor's law base."
It could be Superman. I'll warn Luthor at once.
Jimmy Olsen has made his way in the next panel to Luthor's law base, and we see it's a grey building. It has the statues of Lex and Clayface that we saw Superman spying at earlier on, and there is a golden tower reaching up behind part of the building. It has the statues, and the caption says,
Luthor's law base has been given to the great scientific lawman by a city grateful to him and to his partner, Clayface.
and as Jimmy runs in, he's thinking to himself,
It must be Superman menacing Luthor again. He's our greatest enemy, but sooner or later, we'll stop that villain of steel.
and then inside the building, inside what looks, I'm guessing, must be the top of the tower, given
Yeah.
the yellow background, it's Lex and Jimmy together, and the caption says,
When Luthor receives the warning,
and we see Jimmy and Lex looking at some equipment, and Luthor says,
My super-sensitive seismograph does show someone is tunneling this way, and it can only be Superman. We'll be ready for him.
meanwhile, as Superman and Batman penetrate the heart of Gotham City underground,
and we see Superman and Batman, our Superman and Batman, that is, of course, in the tunnel. Superman is gazing up using his vision, and Batman says,
You say we're under Luthor's base. Can your X-ray vision spot the parallel world machine in it? And Superman answers,
I can't see it anywhere in the building, but there's a small lead-walled basement room I can't see into. He may have hidden the machine there. We'll soon find out.
but when Superman uses his mighty strength to burst up into the lead-walled room,
And we see Superman and Batman emerging up through the floor, but immediately Superman is suffering, and he says, The inside of this room is lined with green kryptonite. It's razor paralyzing me. And we can see, looks like slabs of kryptonite basically on the wall, on the ceiling.
yeah,
We can also see the apparatus in the background, and Batman says,
it's a trap. Get back, Superman. Too late.
Superman must have passed out, and we see Batman holding Superman under his arms, and the caption says,
Then, as Batman valiantly tries to rescue Superman,
Lex Luthor and Clayface burst in, and Lex is saying,
At last, we have them. Clayface. I'll put the green K manacles on Superman.
moments later,
Superman is on his back in the next panel, on the ground, restrained by the kryptonite manacles. Batman is trying to reason with Lex and Clayface and Jimmy Olsen, who's still there, and Batman says,
listen, I know this is hard to believe, but we're not the super criminals you want. They're doubles.
and Jimmy Olsen pipes up with,
Jeepers, what a feeble trick to escape. Now I've heard everything.
So in the next panel, some policemen have arrived, and they're carrying Superman away using his cape. Batman has been restrained now as well, and Lex is saying,
Take them to jail. They'll get a fair trial like every accused person.
and Jimmy Olsen says,
And a fair conviction too. Great work, Luthor.
and Batman is thinking to himself,
Jimmy Olsen is Luthor's friend here, and he hates Superman. It's still like a nightmare. Soon, in a security prison,
and we see Batman and Superman in neighbouring cells, and Batman says,
you've come to, Superman. Then, you're all right? And Superman responds,
except that these manacles are scientifically made with enough green kryptonite to weaken my superpowers without killing me. Now, at this point, should we discuss the fact he's on a parallel Earth being affected with kryptonite?
yes, that is something I was going to talk about.
Go ahead then.
We've had it sometimes that parallel Earth kryptonite works on Kryptonians, and sometimes it doesn't. And this time, obviously, they decided to go for the fact it does. So it would have been really interesting if it hadn't worked. That might have been quite a giveaway as to this isn't the Superman that they're used to dealing with on that Earth.
That's a good point, yeah. Because obviously there was the whole red kryptonite in the Goliath Hercules story, and that didn't really have any impact. And then there was Ultraman, who gained powers every time he was exposed
Yeah.
to kryptonite. Interesting.
The other thing I want to mention about having these two characters locked up
Yes.
is the fact
Batman's still masked. Why have they not
Yeah.
unmasked Batman? In the Batman, nobody remembered he was unmasked, to great dramatic
Of
effect.
course, that's right.
Surely if they've caught this
Yeah.
super criminal, they would want to unmask, especially when Superman's helpless to stop them. And that also would have exposed the Bruce Wayne identity. So
That's a really good point.
Strange. Also, he's got his utility belt on. Which, it seems like a bit of a faux pas on the part of the police.
No, you're right. This is all very true. It's almost like the police aren't paying attention, or it's not occurred to anyone that this is something that they might deal with.
And Luthor's not the super genius we expected him to be in this
No,
film.
you're absolutely right, because this could have caused all sorts of trouble for the Batman of this parallel Earth if they'd unmasked him and gone, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then it's very interesting because the parallel version of someone else is about to pop up. So we'll continue with the story then. The caption says,
Then the two prisoners have a startling visitor.
it's the Clark Kent of this parallel Earth and a policeman. And the policeman is saying,
No ordinary visitors are allowed, but since you're a reporter, it's all right, Mr. Kent.
our Superman is astonished and he says, look, Batman, it's Clark Kent. Then on this Earth, you, the criminal Superman, hide under the everyday identity of Clark Kent. And evil parallel universe Clark Kent responds with, right. I just wanted you to know that while you two take the rap for us, we, your doubles, will get that machine and go into your world. Think of that when you're being punished for our crimes. Think of us masquerading as you on your Earth. What opportunities for crime that'll give us. And off camera, hero Superman can be heard saying, you. Say a bad word, Clark, go on.
If it was Batman, it'd be,
You fiend!
but, Superman just says, you.
Awful. So the caption for the next panel,
And when the Clark Kent of the parallel world tells his plans to his foster parents,
we should say Clark's in a brown suit as opposed to his maybe more traditional blue suit. I don't know if that's worth mentioning. But Clark's back with evil parallel Martha and evil parallel Jonathan. And evil parallel Ma Kent says,
Clark, we're proud of you. Making your doubles pay for your crimes was an inspiration. And Jonathan says,
I always said our boy would be the greatest crook on earth. This, do you know what? The most upsetting part of this is seeing the Kents as evil criminals. It's horrible, isn't it?
especially when at this time on Earth 1 they're dead.
Exactly.
So they've survived, but their Earth 1 counterparts
Wow.
are dead. So yeah, interesting.
I really hope that before the end of the story, there is not a scene when our Superman meets these evil versions of his parents, because he could. That could be.
That'd be heartbreaking.
Am I revealing the fact that I might not have done a close reading of this story before? Well, maybe, possibly. Possibly I want it to be fresh for the reading. So, the caption for the next panel says,
and the father of the criminal Batman is equally proud.
and we see Batman and evil Thomas Wayne in the evil Batcave, and there's piles of cash and money lying on the floor in bags, which I think is hilarious. And evil Batman says,
Now the police think that they have us in prison, it'll be easier for us to steal that machine from Luthor's law base.
and his evil dad says,
It's a terrific scheme. It'll go down in criminal history.
right, and then there's a bit of a slow dissolve. We're now in a courtroom, and Superman and Batman are clearly on the stand. The court is packed, and there's a member of the court procedural team who's obviously starting proceedings.
The people versus Superman and Batman.
And one of the people in the courtroom says,
Luthor and Clayface are here as witnesses. Their testimony alone would convict those two super crooks. Over the page to page 6 of chapter 2.
At this same moment, at the lofty tower of Luthor's law base,
Yeah, we're back at Luthor's law base, and we see the top of Luthor's tower, and there's some fog around the platform, and a voice from the street says,
Fog must be drifting up from the harbour. Look at that little cloud of it up there.
but this fog is not as innocent as it looks.
and sure enough, it's evil Superman and evil Batman, and Superman has given Batman a lift up onto the platform, and Superman thinks to himself, by super inhaling fog-like vapour, and then exhaling slowly, I'm hiding myself and Batman in this little cloud of fog. And Batman says as he steps onto the platform,
The parallel world machine must still be here in the law base. I'll get it. Green K won't bother me.
And moments later,
Batman has grabbed the apparatus successfully, and Superman is flying Batman and the apparatus along on the same platform that he carried Batman to the law base on, and Batman is saying,
Now we'll study the machine and find out how to operate it. Then we'll go to that other Earth where Batman and Superman are heroic lawmen.
fantastic. A slow dissolve. The caption says,
while in the courtroom,
And we're back in the courtroom, and we see Superman and Batman still on trial, and the prosecutor is standing up, and he's a familiar-faced man.
Yeah.
It looks like Perry White.
Yeah.
And Perry White is saying,
Members of the jury, we'll first show some of the crimes of these two supercriminals recorded on newsreels.
And Superman's thinking,
In this parallel world, Perry White isn't the Daily Planet editor, but is the prosecuting attorney. And there's Lois Lane on the jury, turning from me with loathing. Yeah, right enough, Lois in the foreground, looking very pinched about the eyes, it must be said. So in the next panel, Perry's got a film projector set up and it's showing footage of Superman. And Perry is saying, such as Superman's vicious destruction of our unmanned scientific instrument satellites because it refused to pay him protection money. It was photographed by a camera in another satellite. And the projected image shows Superman punching a satellite so it breaks up. Perry continues at the top of the next page. Here, Batman's stealing the control of experimental construction machines and using them to loot a whole town. And we see Batman operating a sort of remote control device and what looks like big giant mechanised... They look like Thunderbirds module sort of equipment, don't they?
they're kind of like red tanks,
Yeah.
except instead of big guns, they've got arms.
Big robot arms, and one of them's carrying a safe, and one of them's carrying obviously a display case with jewels in it. Another one has burst through a wall and it's carrying another safe. Wow.
Do you remember the old British comics character General Jumbo?
Yes, I do.
He was a young boy who had a remote control toy army that he used to like operate. This very much reminds me of that. Batman just like being off to the side with his remote controls.
We should mention that General Jumbo didn't use them to loot small towns, though.
No, it's
he was
true.
a good sort. He was a goodie.
The Earth 3 General Jumbo might have been different.
Maybe it was the General Jumbo of this parallel Earth that gave Batman a loan of his equipment.
Could be.
Anyway, so the next caption says,
The crushing evidence of super crimes piles up for hours.
And Perry continues.
and their only defence is to claim that they're not Batman and Superman at all, but they're doubles transported into this world by some fantastic machine. And a lad in the courtroom says,
The DA has them cold. When Luthor and Clayface testify after the noon recess, the defence might as well quit.
we then cut back to Lex and Clayface in Luthor's law base. The caption says,
As Luthor returns to his law base during the recess.
and Lex is saying,
I wonder if that machine could be what they claim. I haven't had time yet for a thorough scientific examination of it, but I'll start now. And Clayface replies,
Luthor, you can't believe these super crooks. Oh well, go ahead and examine it to satisfy yourself.
But in the lead-lined room,
Clayface and Lex have entered, and Clayface is saying, the machine is gone. Who could have stolen it? You filled in that tunnel, and the two super crooks have been safe in jail. And Lex says,
I'll find out who did it. These binoculars I left in each room are really memory lenses.
and Lex is reaching up to get what looks like a pair of binoculars on top of a cupboard or a storage box or something. And the caption of the next panel says,
and one of Luthor's scientific inventions yields information.
and we see what Lex sees basically. And Lex is saying,
The memory lenses are electronic cameras that record whatever they see. They show that the criminal Batman stole the machine. Then the two prisoners are really innocent doubles.
and sure enough, we see evil Batman carrying off the apparatus from the kryptonite-lined room. We move on to page 8, back at the courtroom.
And when the trial resumes, the court is stunned by Luthor's testimony.
And Lex is giving evidence, and he says,
And so the accused cannot be the supercriminals. Their story of being innocent doubles is true.
and this prompts the judge to say,
The testimony of the greatest of lawmen, Luthor, cannot be doubted. Case dismissed.
and he hammers his gavel down on the desk. That must be court adjourned then.
Yes.
So, slow dissolve back to the law base, and the caption says,
Then, in the law base, occurs a momentous four-way conference.
and Clayface, Lex, and our Superman and Batman are all in conversation. And Lex Luthor is saying,
We know Batman has a hideout near Gotham City, but we could never find it. I believe it's like the secret base of yours on your parallel Earth.
and Batman says,
Then I can take you there fast.
and he thinks,
Though it seems weird to lead Luthor and Clayface to the Batcave.
The new Incredible Law Team begins its vital mission.
yep, this must obviously be the incredible new super team that was mentioned in the opening splash panel for this
Yes.
chapter. Superman is taken to the air and he says, you three go in Luthor's flyer. I'll lead the way. And as Lex, Clayface and Batman run towards Luthor's plane, Luthor is saying,
I have the green K manacles in this lead box. Hurry, before those crooks learn how to operate that machine and go through to your Earth.
But when they reach the Batcave,
And the four of them have assembled in the Batcave, and Clayface says,
they're not here. Our last chance to catch them has failed.
and Superman says,
Wait, if the criminal Batman has a Batcave, the criminal Superman could have a fortress of solitude, like mine. Come on, I'll give you a plane of super fast tow. And that was the detail that we didn't tell you about from the opening 2/3 of a page splash panel,
Yes.
which had them all flying down to Superman's Fortress of Solitude. So we'll do that panel now. As they're flying down, Superman is saying, "Our evil doubles are in the criminal Superman's fortress." And he thinks, how strange it seems to be working with Luthor and Clayface. And inside the plane, which is towing Batman along on a rope ladder, Lex is saying,
Then prepare for action. We must capture those villains at once.
and he thinks,
Me and Clayface teaming up with Superman and Batman. It's unbelievable.
he's taking it all in his stride, isn't he?
He's very logical, is this Luthor?
He's not worried at all. So then they have reached the Fortress of Solitude, and the caption says,
Minutes later, in the far north.
and Superman is using his vision powers on the doorway of the Fortress of Solitude, and he's saying, the criminal Superman does have a fortress, and I can see with my X-ray vision that he and the criminal Batman are in it, about to use the machine.
And Clayface says,
We must hit them fast. I'll turn myself into a missile and smash that door. Be ready to get the kryptonite manacles on evil Superman quickly. And this is amazing. I mean, Pete, you're going to have to fill me in a little bit more about the nature of Clayface's powers here, because this seems quite extreme that he's able to transform himself into this missile.
This Clayface is slightly more powerful, I think, than the Earth 1 Clayface.
Interesting.
He's more kind of like a Master of Disguise kind of character.
Right.
He doesn't really turn into cheetahs or missiles.
Yeah,
Very
it's
readily.
fascinating, isn't it? I want to do a Transformers sound effect, you know. So anyway, the caption for the bottom panel of page 8 of chapter 2 says,
As the transformed Clayface crashes through the huge door.
Evil Superman exclaims,
It's our doubles! And Luthor! And we see the missile Clayface just zooming through the air, which is amazing. Evil Batman and Superman on the left of the panel with the apparatus beside them, and our Batman and Superman and Lex coming through the hole in the door. And Batman is holding open the casket which has the kryptonite manacles inside. And Batman is thinking,
Superman can't handle these kryptonite manacles, so it's up to me to act fast.
we move on to the final page, and the caption says,
Batman summons all his acrobatic skill for a supremely swift effort.
and parallel universe evil Batman exclaims,
Look out, he's going to shackle you with green kryptonite.
and Batman of our Earth has jumped forward and he's put the kryptonite manacles on Superman, and Superman says, It's already on my wrists. I've no strength. You use a disintegrating weapon on it.
But as the criminal Batman reaches for the deadly weapon,
And we see our Superman grabbing evil Batman from behind it as evil Batman was reaching up for a gun that was up on the wall of the fortress. And Superman's saying, I can't handle Green K, but I can handle you. And this prompts Lex to say,
We have them. Now we'll take them back for trial.
and in the next panel, our Superman is saying, Luthor, with your great science, couldn't you brainwash our doubles into honest men so they could use their great talents for good? And Lex replies,
I can try. You three guard them, and I'll get the necessary instruments from my law base.
Blimey, that's a bit dark, isn't it? They're going to basically lobotomise them.
This is Doc Savage style. That's what he used to do.
Wow. Okay, right. Caption for the next panel says,
as they await Luthor's return,
And Superman says,
Look, in this world the people of Kandor don't live in a bottle city, but on a tiny replica of Krypton they must have made, enclosed in glass and held in place by anti-gravity beams. And Superman and Batman are beholding a model of Krypton that's being supported and held inside a big glass sphere. Very interesting. Batman says,
I hear Luthor returning now to try the brainwashing.
amazing. Oh my god, they're so casual about it. The caption for panel 5 of page 9 says,
the villains are fitted with special apparatus, a switch is thrown, and
we see the evil Superman and Batman with little headbands, and they're inside a room behind a glass panel. Lex is on the outside along with our Superman and Batman. Lex operating some equipment, and it must be said that the way the shading has been done on our Superman, it suddenly looks like he's rocking an outstanding mullet.
It does. Is this the first appearance of Superman's mullet from the 90s?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
This issue's going to shoot up in value.
Please put this panel on the socials. This is tremendous. But anyway, Lex, as he operates the equipment, Lex is saying,
Only time will tell if the brainwashing has removed their criminal impulses. We'll capture Robin and brainwash him too. I'll give you a monitor with which you can look into our world and see the outcome after you've returned to your Earth.
wow, Lex with this off is very teched up if he can just sort of create something like that. That's tremendous. So, we're now in the final panel of the story, and the caption says,
later, when Batman and Superman are back in our world,
and sure enough, we see Superman and Batman watching events on the monitor that Lex gave them. Superman is saying, the brainwashing worked. Our doubles are now the fellow lawmen of Luthor and Clayface in that world. And Batman says,
Maybe we can someday do the same to our Luthor and Clayface, but I doubt they'll ever be our pals.
The end. Well,
right, a couple of things just from the last few panels
Yes.
here that I didn't want to break up the flow. So, in this parallel Earth, we've got the bottle city of Kandor still, except it's on a miniaturized Krypton.
tiny replica of Krypton, yeah.
Why would the evil Superman have the bottle city of Kandor?
Maybe he's holding him prisoner. Maybe he's a sadist.
Could be, but that's
Yeah.
weird. Also, why did our Superman and Batman, if they're so into this brainwashing idea, why did they not take back a duplicate of the machine?
That's true.
There are so many questions in this story. So many questions.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I'm still dazzled by the mullet. So I cannot tear my eyes
One
away.
scene never forgotten.
Yes.
And also, we only see Superman, Batman, Robin, and Luthor and Clayface are the only heroes and villains we see on this parallel Earth. We don't know about any other heroes or villains. Again, this is set kind of more in the World's Finest verse. So that's kind of the characters
Yeah.
that they use. So we don't know, is there a Justice League? If so, are they evil or are they former villains? Who else could possibly be in it? It's really interesting.
My answer to that would be to postulate that all the World's Finest stories just take place in a universe where the only superheroes are Superman and Batman and Robin.
Pretty much. That's what it's like.
Apart from the Crimson Avenger when he pops up.
Well, he doesn't reappear, so, you know.
And again, it points to what we were saying earlier on when Batman refers to being on a parallel world in the Batman that nobody remembered in issue 136. There is no mention made of any of their adventures with the Justice League. It's almost like when you're reading a World's Finest story that the other superheroes may as well just not exist.
Yeah, I've always kind of felt that.
It's an interesting little quirk. Ultimately, again, it goes back to what I've said many times about how a lot of the stories of this era, particularly a lot of the Superman family stories, they're just disposable, fun entertainment.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, 1965, Marvel's been going for, 4 or 5 years by this point, and Marvel started its continuity almost immediately, really, didn't it?
Absolutely,
They were so good at it, that coherence and that universe building, and, you know, the FF guest starring in issue 1 of Spider-Man, that sort of stuff, you know, the way they use the Avengers. DC, at this point, they're still way, way behind, and it's interesting that what we have seen as much as Hal Jordan making reference to the parallel Earths from the Justice League and Flash stories. That's arguably a step in the right direction, but at this point DC are still publishing each comic almost like it's individual and separate from everything else.
Yes.
Do we have any reader reaction from this?
There's only one letter I could find in a later issue that responds to this story in particular, and it's quite short, but here we go.
Okay.
It says, "Dear editor, Superman and Batman Criminals was great, but I would like to know if the Supergirl of that parallel Earth was evil too." And that's from Jerry Lee Vance from La Jara, California. And the editorial response to that is, "No. In that universe, Zor-El didn't want to trust his daughter's future to an evil Superman, so he sent her to a different world. Therefore, that parallel Earth has no Supergirl.
Oh.
And it doesn't have a line of DC magazines either." Gosh. So it's the worst world you could possibly go to.
I wonder how that other Supergirl got on, and I wonder if we'll ever find out. Of course, we probably won't.
No.
I have to say, I enjoyed the story. I thought it was a little bit more entertaining, a bit more exciting than the Batman who nobody remembered.
I don't know, I really liked the Batman Nobody Remembers.
I was into it, and
Just
as I say,
totally put through the mill, and it was almost like he was losing his sanity. It felt very kind of Grant Morrison-y to me, to be honest.
I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but I just found this one a little bit more satisfying because, you know, with a cast of thousands, and it's an interesting idea that they were shown these evil versions of Superman and Batman, and we should say that the cover obviously isn't actually reflected at any point in the story. It's obviously just one of those sort of representative one-pitch sort of ones. It's interesting that we saw these versions, and it's also interesting that they were dealt with. The brainwashing. That's mental. I mean, our Superman comes up with the idea because he's obviously right. You know, come on, Lex, you've got to do something about this. This can't go on. I mean, who knows what misery they've actually caused? You know, were they murderers? You know, it's interesting that they really fixed them, but then obviously everyone's all smiling and waving in the last panel. So maybe they were just petty thieves. Maybe they weren't completely evil.
I think they are just thieves because at that time when evil Superman distracted our Superman by throwing the boulder, they left Batman helpless. They could easily have killed Batman then if they were killers.
Yeah.
That would have taken
That's true.
a fraction of a second. Instead, they just got away.
That's true.
We're looking at this with modern eyes, but back then, that wouldn't even have crossed anyone's mind. Like the whole locking Batman up without unmasking him or taking his utility belt off. You know, didn't even cross their minds.
Yeah, and it's always a thing as well that when evil Superman threw the boulder at those houses, he probably knew that it wasn't too much of a test
It's a distraction.
for the goody Superman, and he would catch it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was quite into that. I mean, the artwork wasn't the best Kurt Swan that I've ever seen. It was quite crowded in places, and
There's a couple of great panels, but the rest of it is okay.
I was very entertained by Evil Man Pa Kent, especially as you pointed out, as far as our Superman was concerned, that, you know, they've been dead for a while on Earth 1, or the home Earth.
Yeah.
That was very interesting.
I'm glad he didn't meet them. That would have been horrible. And obviously Thomas Wayne as well was alive still.
Yeah,
so Batman didn't meet him.
Yeah, no mention of Martha Wayne.
No mention of Martha, no. Unless,
she's the Joker.
No.
That opens up all sorts of other questions. I mean, it still has that sort of disposable, naive quality that a lot of the Superman family titles have. But there was a lot going on. There was some really good ideas. I think it was told very, very well. And that was good.
Yeah. One of the other things I really liked about this story is we've got Lex Luthor as a hero, and obviously that's something we've had more recently in comics. And also Clayface as a hero, because Clayface was recently, over the last couple of years, he was in a superhero team that Batman put together in Detective Comics. But Lex has got more of a history of being a hero.
Yes.
He was hero of his own world at one stage. More recently, he actually was a Justice Leaguer.
That's right.
Which is quite interesting. And at time of recording, of course, DC have just announced a new series with Lex as a hero called Imperious Lex, written by Mark Russell and drawn by Steve Pugh. So I'm looking forward to that greatly, with Lex being the hero of his own world.
Oh yes, of course, that's the thing they're doing for a couple of months to start next year. That's just been announced today, that people are speculating is repurposing the material they prepared for that abortive 5G event. Yes, we'll see how that plays out, I suppose. But yeah, interesting.
Let's talk about Robin briefly, because we did touch on it a bit during the story. So we can assume that his origin's pretty much the same, in that, his parents are killed at the circus and Bruce Wayne adopts him. So do you think this Bruce Wayne has got a cover of being kind of a philanthropist?
Yeah.
Would he officially kind of adopt Dick Grayson, or is he basically just kind of abducted him and no one knows about Dick Grayson existing, really?
That's really interesting. I mean, the Batman of this parallel Earth must have some level of resource to be able... Thomas obviously must have some level of resource to buy Wayne Manor and set up the Batcave in that house underneath and all that sort of stuff. So the Robin one is interesting, because what if he just kidnapped him from the circus or enticed him away from the circus?
Yeah.
What if his parents wonder what happened to him?
Oh, I hadn't even considered that. They might not have died.
Yeah, there's a lot of room for potential of exploration of the situation, and it's one thing it's always quite frustrating is the wrong word, but it's always a little bit frustrating when you're reading certain Silver Age stories and you feel that they've maybe only scratched the surface of the concepts that they're demonstrating. That was a good one.
Yeah, this is a world I'd quite like to see again. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah.
And the fact that Superman's got the viewer, that they can watch it, that would be an easy way for them to bring in this story again. And they've also still got the apparatus.
Yes.
Which makes them travel there. This dead scientist apparatus. I think they should name the apparatus the plot device. Might be an idea.
Yes, that would work.
So that's what we thought about the story. But what did you think? Please get in touch and let us know. You can email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, because we're putting up certain panels from this, and you can make your own decisions as to, is that a mullet on Superman or not? Please get in touch and let us know.
I can see a Twitter poll coming along, actually. Yes. Is this the first appearance of Superman's mullet? Yes or no? Yeah.
And of course you can follow us on Twitter at podcast_Earth2. We're also on Instagram at the Earth2 Podcast as well. So yes, follow us all the social media.
There's not as much for this issue as there have been for some other recent ones, and some more to come in the immediate future. But we're trying to put as much sort of extra content up on our social media, just to give everyone that's listening a bit more context as to what's going on, and try and give you the full history for a lot of the characters. So we'll see what we can rustle up to supplement this issue, World's Finest. But there won't be as much as there's been for the recent Showcase issue or the Shade issues, unfortunately. But we'll see what we can find.
Absolutely. So I've been Peter.
And I've been David. And we will
talk to you next time on
the Earth 2 Podcast.
Transmatter Cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
My copy of 148 smells divine. It's just like, oh God! if you could bottle the smell of a slightly mouldy mid-60s comic book,